Today we are going to visit one of the oldest, if not the oldest, medieval fortress in France. Right now I'm walking through downtown Nîmes. We're gonna hop in the car and go. Come along for the ride. Today we are traveling, or rather I already did travel, to one of the oldest castles of Europe, and there I found a troubling story among the ruins. Les Baux-de-Provence. I had never heard of it before, but it is one of the most well-known, oldest, and most beautiful Roman-era villages in France. Perched on top of a limestone plateau in the middle of the Alpes Mountains in southern Provence, there was a medieval castle constructed here in 975. From down below, it looks like something of a fairy tale. And indeed, the walls of this ruin hold a tragic love story that has been passed down through generations, known as the Legend of Barbe. Today, we'll walk these ancient streets, explore the ruins of a 10th century fortress, and tell the tale of a love so deep it defied death. When you step into Les Baux-de-Provence, you are entering a time capsule. Built atop cliffs 750 feet high, this plateau has been inhabited for thousands of years. First by the Celtic tribes, who made it their home and first built the fortifications among this rocky outcrop, and then the Roman settlers who constructed the very first foundations of the village out of stone. And finally, the medieval Lords of Baux who completed the fortress that dominates the landscape in all directions. The very name bauxite, an ore that is used to make aluminum, comes from these hills, discovered in the 19th century. But long before that, this was a place of knights and troubadours, and of a tragic figure, Princess Barbe. The main lane passes through the town. It's only about, like 300 meters long, gently sloping upwards towards the castle, but it's lined with very beautiful Renaissance stone buildings. You'll pass in crêperies, artisan shops, and really charming cafes. Here we stopped for a little lunch in a courtyard cafe that serves vegetarian and vegan food and also sells locally made products. Well, that was tasty. We're gonna head out. This is Karen. Hi. Hi. Gonna head out. Walk the road forks at a certain point, and we head towards the Church of Saint-Blaise, Romanesque 12th century church. Built just next to it is a hospital in the 16th century that was used to take care of the injured during the religious wars. But you can imagine the injured of the hospital occupying this beautiful garden with its lovely fountain. It is here in this garden that the legend says Princess Barbe knelt in prayer, asking for guidance in a time of personal turmoil. Princess Barbe was really the bijou of the House of Baux in the 13th century. She was loved by all, admired for her beauty and wit, devotion to her family. And so at the age of 20, lots of suitors came seeking her hand. But it turns out, alas, her heart had already chosen her cousin. Well, maybe a distant cousin? Guillaume d'Estoc, a gallant knight and master of the troubadour tradition. Her parents consented to their union on one condition, that they must wait 3 years before marrying. It was a real test of time and loyalty. So Guillaume used this time to compose songs in her name, singing to her in court, dreaming of their future. And Barbe waited, counting the seasons from the courtyard. And indeed, this courtyard had residences for all of the inhabitants on the ground floor of the castle. And that is where everyone lived, and most of the life of the castle took place in the courtyard. You can imagine that in times of nice weather, people come outside and discuss and plan their day together. In the second courtyard, just beyond the first, that is where the craftsmen and peasants lived, working and creating a real village within the city walls. It must have been such a hive of activity as they tended to the vegetable gardens, the fields, the vineyards. They made artisanal products from metal and leather. They cared for the sheep and the livestock of the manor just beyond the castle walls. And the Castle Baux was one of the most important strongholds in medieval southern France. Centuries ago, this was the seat of a powerful dynasty, the Lords of Baux, who claimed descent from none other than Balthazar, one of the wise men who were present on the night of Jesus Christ's birth. Not sure, how much of that is true, but in the time of medieval France, it was believed, and therefore the family had a real important political and religious clout in the area. Additionally, in the castle, there was a pigeonnier, which in English we say dovecote, where they kept pigeons. It was an important source of eggs and meat and fertilizer for the gardens of the castle. They also had very impressive dungeons where they would have kept political prisoners. And of course, there was the amphitheater, which was a place for entertainment in the basement of this castle. Sheltered from the sun, we can imagine this place hung with tapestries, providing warmth and entertainment after a decadent banquet for the court just next door. During the 13th century, the Castle of Baux is really well known for its troubadour culture, which I'll just say briefly. The troubadour culture is, they were musicians, they were poets, they would write their own songs, they had their own band that would travel with them. Some of them would travel, some of them wouldn't. Even nobility would take part in the troubadour culture. So you can imagine some of them telling stories, their own stories, kind of mocking each other, because they often had this kind of mocking, joking, French sense of humor type of culture to them. And what's unique about Baux is that the ladies would hold mock tribunals. So you can imagine putting on trial the love affair of the moment in song and verse. Pretty unique, but definitely a rich part of the history, and I think it provides a really beautiful portrait of the culture of the moment of this court. And it just sounds like so much fun, right? Like if you're the object of this song, maybe it's less fun for you, but singing aloud in front of everyone, the gossip of the moment, it just must have made for a really lively atmosphere. And definitely they must have sang about Barbe. 3 years passed. Guillaume returned to claim his bride, but when he entered the castle courtyard, he was surprised that there were no musicians. There was no banners out. Only Barbe's mother met him, pale and trembling, and she led him to her daughter's chamber, where Barbe lay in bed with a fever, her body trembling, murmuring the names of saints, Notre Dame, Saint-André, Saint-Blaise, and Guillaume. And then silence. Her body was still, her breath gone. Princess Barbe was dead. And Guillaume collapsed, let out a cry, and within moments he too was dead. As the court prepared to bury the young lovers, the maidens of the household opened Barbe's coffin one last time to bid her farewell. And at that moment, her eyes opened. She was still alive. By some miracle, she was still alive. And her first words were to ask of her fiancé, but sadly, Guillaume was gone. What would she do without her fiancé? That and more to come just after this message. I want to build a community of history lovers and Francophiles. A place where we can come together and discuss the stories that I've collected, but also other stories, and I want to hear your stories. So join me and the other passionate supporters of French history on my Patreon page. It's free to join and be part of the community. Paying members will have access to a monthly Q&A with me, but in any case, I want to hear your ideas and suggestions for upcoming episodes. I'll see you there. These are grain silos. That reminds me of what I was reading in the museum in Nîmes, was that a lot of the design decisions that they were making in the medieval times in this area heavily impacted by what they saw from the Romans. And in Roman and even the Gauls were putting their grain, their wine, their olive oil in these big silos and storing them underground where they would keep better. Basically like a giant jar. I'll put a picture of the one I saw in the museum. There is also the keep on the very top of the mountain. This was my favorite place to visit. It's where the Lord and his family would stay, all in one room in this most protected spot on the top of the fortified village. It was made entirely from giant blocks of stone. And like, what a view, right? I just think it's amazing to think that there were people living here for so long, and in like what, 900, 1000 AD, they were building something of this size. It's massive, and we're on the top of a hill. I mean, obviously there's stone everywhere, so they had lots of stone to choose from, but just the physicality of moving all of these stone up the hill, it's pretty impressive. Among the fortress ruins today, the tower provides a 360-degree view over the entire surrounding plains and fields. We can see beyond the walls of the town, and it was an important defense in the region. There are full-scale medieval trebuchets and battering rams, some of which are just huge. Every spring and summer, costumed guides bring these weapons to life, and they remind us that Les Baux was a kingdom that resisted invaders for centuries. The barons of Baux were among the most powerful lords of the land, and they acquired really important titles and possessions. Right. Prince of Orange, the Counts of Provence, the King of Arles. But by the 15th century, they had been defeated and their fortress was destroyed. The final blow that eventually put the castle into ruins came in 1632, when Cardinal Richelieu led an army that leveled the walls. Richelieu was the de facto leader of France at that time, under the reign of Louis XIII, and they were increasingly concerned with the power of the southern knights, and especially this new Protestant religion. And therefore, Richelieu ordered the destruction of all fortified castles throughout the nation, putting an end to the lingering feudal order. And so they destroyed the castle, but they also destroyed the language and the culture and the traditions of this region. I'm sure the people were devastated, just as devastated as Barbe was when she woke to find that her fiancé was not there. She renounced the world. She entered into the convent of Notre Dame de Nazareth in Aix-en-Provence, where there she spent the rest of her life in prayer and solitude. And finally, upon her death, her final wish was to be buried beside Guillaume in the crypt of their chateau, where they rest now together for eternity. After visiting the castle, we stroll back through town, stop for an ice cream. It is quite touristy, so if you want to go, I would suggest going in the spring or in the fall, but totally charming and definitely worth a trip. I try to imagine it without the gobs of people and just Guillaume singing in front of all, declaring his love to his fiancée. Well, that's all for today. We are going to head back to our little hotel and have something cold to drink. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to check out some of my other videos. And also, tomorrow we're headed to Fête de la Votive, where they release the bull in the streets. So if you're interested in that, here's the link. And in any case, I will see you next time on French in Spirit. Ciao.